Liz Cheney has declared that her post-election mission is to keep Trump out of the White House. And she seems to think that this is a noble calling. In fact, she's convinced her dad, Dick Cheney, that she is on this chivalric quest. And Dick Cheney made a commercial for Liz before the election, basically saying Donald Trump is the most dangerous figure that has ever, in all of American history. It shows you how much history Dick Cheney knows. But anyway, Liz Cheney is apparently considering running for president to keep Trump out of the White House. Now, the guys at Yahoo News and YouGov decided to run a poll and ask people, in a sense, project forward to 2024 and see what might the effect of a Liz Cheney candidacy for the presidency be. And the very amusing result of this poll is that if Liz Cheney were to actually run for president, she would actually help Trump. So how is this even possible? Well, first of all, the survey was 1,500 or so, 1,563 U.S. adults. And it was conducted right after she lost the primary. And what people were asked is, listen, let's assume that the election is being held now, and it's just one-on-one, Biden against Trump, and who would win? Well, apparently Biden would lead by 4 points, 46 to 42%. Now, we're all a little skeptical of these polls. With Biden's approval rating where it is now, it seems to be very doubtful these polls are totally reliable. But nevertheless, let's just kind of go with it. If the 2024 election were held now, one-on-one rematch, Biden would be slightly ahead of Trump, according to this poll. But in a three-way race, it's Biden and Trump and Liz Cheney running, let's just say, as an independent, you can fairly easily assume that Liz Cheney is not going to get the Republican nomination. Well, Trump would vault to an 8-point lead over Biden, 40 to 32. Liz Cheney obviously would be in a distant third place. So I think what's interesting about the survey, taking it even with a grain of salt, is what it's really showing is that Cheney is attracting support or votes, not from Republicans, but from Democrats. In other words, if Cheney is running alongside Trump and Biden in a survey, she's pulling Biden votes, not Trump votes. And Democrats were asked separately in the poll, what do you think of the idea of Cheney even running for president? Good idea, bad idea, are you indifferent to it? And it turns out that among Democrats, it's about even. About 30% say good idea, about 30% say bad idea. So she has a decent amount of Democratic support.
Better than Republicans.
But for the Republicans, when they're asked the same question, they're overwhelmingly against the idea of her running 70% to 10. So now this to me is kind of fascinating because Liz Cheney, if you just look at her views, by and large, she is fairly conservative. In fact, prior to her crusade against Trump, no one thought of Liz Cheney as anything other than a conservative. Liz Cheney is not Susan Collins. She's not Murkowski. She's not Romney. She is actually on the right end of the spectrum. And so you have the rather bizarre phenomenon of Democrats saying that they would welcome really a conservative Liz Cheney. So what it tells me is that Democrats are still deeply infected with Trump derangement syndrome because they don't even care about the fact that Liz Cheney doesn't agree with them on pretty much anything. Their view is that we want a champion to lead the cause against Trump. Maybe strategically they feel it's better to have that champion have an R on her name instead of a D, because it maybe gives her a little bit more credibility, or at least it allows the media to pose like, oh, this is a bipartisan campaign against Trump. There are concerned Republicans. So Liz Cheney is playing a part, but it's a part that apparently Democrats like her to play. And of course, there was some evidence that there were Democrats who crossed the aisle and tried to put her over the top in in Wyoming. They voted for her. The problem for her was that there just weren't that many Democrats in Wyoming, and so there wasn't enough for her to make much headway. Liz Cheney has a PAC. It's called the Great Task, and I think we all know what this so-called Great Task is. By the way, it's not just Trump. She wants to keep other election deniers away from power. Liz Cheney's problem is that what she calls election denialism has now become the mainstream way of thinking in the Republican Party, a party that no longer has a place for one Liz Cheney.